Hey everybody, welcome to part two, When Christians Attack. I think as an introduction, I'm gonna I want to let you know it's gonna be very easy to judge. God will have it very easy on Judgment Day. So there's two areas that I know very well. I've become an expert. One is the harmony of the Gospels. In 2000, I identified the four very distinct and obvious blocks of Matthean text that are out of place, very orderly, and they have their corollaries in Mark and Luke. So that's very scandalous, that since 2000, the true timeline, of Christ's ministry, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, has not been popularized, and I haven't been allowed, to publish and to teach, popularly on the true timeline of Christ's ministry. The second area after the harmony of the Gospels are these word studies. So I'm about to fill out this paper here for the language that you use in church that is so far removed from New Testament biblical language. And this falls on church leaders, having exchanged the language of the New Testament and giving you a vocabulary that's very humanistic, man-centered, anthropocentric. So I have a video teaching on marriage. Now, marriage is very simple, whether we're in Genesis or Mark 10 or Ephesians 5, whether we're talking Moses, Jesus, or Paul. God brings two people together in marriage, which is to say that they become one flesh. This isn't rocket science, folks, okay? So here's a three-letter word, okay? But I want to talk about the decency of Christianity, okay? We all are familiar, that we have a good shepherd, right? Okay? So let me go to that one right here. Here's a word that you use that is not a biblical word. Okay? This word is pastor. Okay? The Greek word is shepherd. Right? So once you become, what I'm kind of calling an innocent, New Testament, simple Christian, you just take the language of the New Testament and adopt it, as your worldview language. What happens is there becomes a real purity, right, inside of a human being as we let the Word of God wash over us and define our earthly existence, right? So this word right here, right, this is what we might call poetically the narrow path. This word, it begins with a P. Okay, it's a four-letter word. And it's a biblical word. It's a Greek word that we have in English. Okay? So either you're married, right? You're on the narrow path, right? It leads to life, right? Or you're talking about this three-letter word, which is not in the Bible, okay? Then here's your cult of personality, and as I develop this chart, you're going to see that the church that leaves the language of the New Testament leaves a world that's theocentric or God-centered, right? Okay, and this is how this is a strong New Testament word. Okay, you're not going to find pastor in your New Testament. Okay, Now here's a word. If you're married, if you're in what we would call a family, right? You want to raise your children to understand obligation or debt, right? This word is forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Forgive us our obligations. This Greek word is ophelia, and it means a debt as in an obligation, or an obligation as in a debt. But what happens is when you go to church, people take this word instead. They talk about this word that does not have a presence in the New Testament. And this word is responsibility, right? Or responsible. Okay. See how quickly we go into kind of a human-centered, worldview. That people, we say loosely, people have a responsibility to do the right thing. But really, biblically speaking, we have an obligation in terms of a debt. We should learn indebtedness, like to the forefathers of the United States. The people that, they put their life on the line for us. That's why it's, forgive us our obligations or our debts as we forgive those who are indebted or obliged to us. Okay, so do you believe that God made us a male and female, right, in the beginning, right? He made us male and female, all right? He made us humans, male and female. Here's a word that's not in the Bible. This word is wife. See, the translators do such an injustice, right? Because now our marriages, right, a huge theme in the Old and New Testament, right? We say God is preoccupied with marriage, but humans are preoccupied with the S word, the cult of personality, a human's supposed, autonomy, right? Moral autonomy, responsibility, right? And now instead of our females, right, we have our wives. So our wives are allowed to be their own woman, right? So it just keeps going. This word right here, I left out. What do you want to put? An E or a Y? Because the New Testament does not know this word church. See, if you watch my teaching on marriage, Rod Akins at Church of the Woods, up in Lake Arrowhead, California, he announced, from the pulpit, about, I guess, in 2012, that marriages inside the church are now failing more than marriages outside the church. and it's because of the cult of personality. It's because of a misplaced, emphasis on human will, right? There is such thing as will, right? But and indebtedness. But what is this? Moral autonomy, responsibility. The New Testament doesn't know these words. A man's body does not belong to him when he's married, and a woman's body does not belong to her when she's married, but they become each other's possession, right? The two shall become one. Right? So you keep going back here. This word right here, you probably think it's a nothing word, because this word, right? If you remember what a proof text is, do you remember what a proof text is? A proof text is when you misunderstand one verse at the expense of another. A proof text is when you try to take a single verse and prove something from that single verse. That's called a proof text. A proof text is a mistake. It's a fallacy. It's a judgment, a misjudgment, in thinking. It's a misbehavior in communication, right? It's, so people say, there's no one good, only God, right? Remember Jesus says, why do you call me good? He asked that provocative question, right? That's what Jesus does. He asks provocative question. So just now I read all 100 occurrences of this word, agathos. If you've ever, heard of the name Agatha, right? That's a Greek word. It means good. The Bible has a lot to say about a good conscience, about a good servant, right? There is a lot of good associated with New Testament Christianity. So I would like our assembly, our Christian assembly, to manifest good behavior. What I'm noticing is that people have exchanged, right? People have exchanged good with cool. Right? So I'd like to find out, where are the good people? Because I'm not impressed with the cool people that are in church, misplacing each other's, responsibility as they surround themselves around a personality. And then, of course, our women, if you don't understand, how bad the divorce rate is, women are jumping out of marriages left and right. And I'd say, if men would learn to be good and behave themselves in Christian assembly, then we would have respect for females, right? As we learn our indebtedness and obligation to each other, acknowledging our shepherd, and honoring marriage, and not being this P word, this 4-letter word. This is a Greek word. We also have it in English. Okay. Now, did you know that knowledge is a benefit of the new covenant? You can read about the new covenant in the book that we call the New Testament. And knowledge, there's two words. One of them is a gnosis, right? And then the other one is like eido, eido. Okay? Gnosis shows up over 200 times in your New Testament. And eido, which is also popularly translated as knowledge or understanding, eido shows up over 100. Okay? But what happens, we say, we take a proof text and say, knowledge puffs up, right? But love builds up. So now the church, the Christians are separated from knowledge, right? We're separated from knowledge in the sense because there's a stigma attached, right? So I'm going to write this word here, right? Because people say, the mysteries of God, the mysteries of God. Okay? Mysteries. They also say, the secret things of God. Now, I've done another study, and I've done it on the Greek word for mystery. Okay? And in the Bible makes a distinction between mysteries hidden and mysteries revealed. You see that? The old covenant, right, is a covenant that veiled the new covenant. Jesus Christ lifted that veil and revealed himself and his will. Okay? So if you are somebody, that you misuse, this language of knowledge, you misuse it, you turn something that's a benefit of New Testament Christianity, you say, oh, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. That verse has its context, okay? But that context has to be understood with the other over 200 uses of this word gnosis, or the 100 occurrences of Ado, right? So if you want to talk about a mystery, yeah, there's mysteries. There's mysteries hidden, and there's mysteries revealed. So, you know what this word is, right? This word now has a stigma on it. And a lot of pastors have a problem with this word. You know this word? Okay, if marriage is on the narrow path, this is on the broad path. And, it should be very clear what that word is, right? But it's not just me in this, in the kitchen right here, but a shepherd lives in my heart. And I'm trying to get you to understand, that because my shepherd is here, I feel obligated to respect males and females, right, in our assembly as a good person with knowledge. So I'm trying to use discretion, but this is a valid four-letter word that's in our New Testament, right? But what happens is, we use this 3-letter word that starts with an S. The Bible doesn't have that word. Here's a word. So now we're going to finish off, okay? As I mentioned, in the marriage teaching, there is no Greek word, okay, fornication. Okay? And maybe you know why by now. Okay? Maybe you know why. The reason there's no word fornicate is because there's marriage. Marriage is that word, people. When God brings two people together and they become one flesh, that's what he calls marriage. It's very simple. Okay? So it's very easy to judge to judge popular Christianity and to judge, the leaders within the church. Because as I share, in that marriage teaching video, church leadership has usurped God's authority in marriage. They've gotten their hands on it. So there's no such thing as wedding vows. There's no such thing as a wedding ring. You may kiss the bride? Really? Where'd that come from? There's no such word as wife. But there's male and female that God brings together in marriage. All right? And that's what he does. That's how he populates the earth. Because he is the shepherd of the earth. He's the Lord of the earth. He's the king of the earth. He's the creator of the earth and of humans, And so if we would raise our children to be indebted or obliged, to each other, to our communities, to our founding fathers, to our country, and then that, then we're learning respect, for each other, right? And so we behave in our Christian assemblies, right? So instead of everybody acting cool, too cool for school, church parking lots are kind of, famous. Then we would learn, to do good. This word agathos shows up over 100 times. But is your pastor teaching you about good? Or is your pastor saying, there's no one good? Well, I just read. So here's what you do. You get on your smartphone and you type in, there is no one good, only God is good, right? You go to that verse on Bible Hub. I'm promoting BibleHub.com, and scroll all the way down, and you're going to find, what's called the Englishman's Concordance there. You can read all the, the verses that have the word good in it, agathos, through Bible Hub. Hey, I love you. I want to say, I want to ask you a question. Is there a Greek word for family? Is family a Greek New Testament word? Okay. So let me know in the comments. I'd sure like to hear from you. No one ever calls or writes, and the church is so distant from New Testament language, that I don't think a lot of you really realize how far removed our Christian assemblies are from New Testament teachings, from New Testament language, from New Testament worldview. And what happens is when you take away someone's language, right? Because look at this. How are women going to feel? How are women going to feel when they realize, this word is just not in the Bible? Are they going to be good? Are they going to behave and be nice about it? Or are women or husbands or Christians or pastors, are they going to attack? And unfortunately, the church is a lot of times too cool for school, and they'd rather have mysteries hidden than mysteries revealed. See what I mean? So it's very easy, it's going to be very easy for God to judge the church, because the church is so far removed from the language and the teachings and the worldview of the New Testament. So let me know if there's a Greek New Testament word for family. Put that in the comments. I'd love to see that. What's your response? Do you have any questions, concerns, comments? Insights? I'd like to hear from you. So I'll let you go. This has been part 2 of the 2 parts. When Christians attack other Christians. Because we believe the Bible. All right. Michael.Pigon @gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.